Okay, Boker Tov. Hi, Shavua Tov. I'm back after a week. This past week, after my 3 sons and my son-in-law got out of the army, and now they're fine, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. So one of my sons convinced us to go with him to a place that I haven't been to yet, that I'm dreaming to get there, and it's part of Tzfat. So we went to Toledo and Cordova in Spain for a few days. We saw the 3 most magnificent medieval ancient synagogues in Europe. Okay, 2 of them in Toledo and 1 in Cordova. Cordova is also the birthplace of the Rambam. But Toledo, the rabbis of Toledo, okay, some of them even came to here. Rabbi Yosef Karo was born, according to some scholars, in Toledo. And so he was only there maybe for 4 years, because he was born in 1488. By 1492, okay, the Jews had to leave. And many of them went to Portugal, and others went to other places. And some of them became conversos, they stayed. And so I imagined Rabbi Yosef Karo as an infant crawling in the alleyways of Toledo, and other great rabbis, including Rabbi Yitzhak Abu Hav, who was also part of his time in Toledo, and his Sefer Torah is next door, 2 doors from here, because the door behind us is the Shaki family house, but the door behind that is the famous Abu Hav Shul, named after Rabbi Yitzhak Abu Hav, who wrote the famous Sefer Torah, which is the oldest Sefer Torah in the world, that's still being read from, which is right next door to us. So I'm not going to go into the whole history of Toledo, just maybe show you a picture of what Toledo looks like. I took about 50 pictures in Toledo. Okay, it's a beautiful old city, bustling with tourists. I told them to come to Tzfat also. And not many people know, even the people of Tzfat don't know that in 1992, okay, we became a twin city. Tzfat became a twin city with Toledo. It was 500 years after the expulsion of the Jews from Spain. So that year, 500 years after, okay, they were commemorating 500 years. 1992 was 500. Was
twin city with Toledo?
What?
Is Tzfat still twin city with Toledo?
Of course, but the new mayor probably doesn't know, Shlomo. We'll have to tell him. Okay? And the people of Tzfat probably forgot, but we're twin cities. I didn't have the time to go to the mayor's office in Toledo. But it's there, and maybe we'll talk about more, delve into the history of Toledo and how it influenced so much Tzfat, Toledo, Ibn Ezra, Yehuda Levi, from the earlier times, in the medieval, okay, 800, 900 years ago, but also 500 years ago, right? The time of the expulsion, Rabbi Yitzhak Abar Benel, and like I said, Rabbi Yitzhak Abu Hav, and Rabbi Yosef Karo was probably born there.
They're all from Toledo, or just
all of them were part of the time of their lives. They lived in Toledo. Some of them lived also in Cordova. Cordova was the bigger city. Toledo, but still, it's still there. It's an old city like Tzfat. And so I was also in Madrid. So we'll talk about more. The Abu Hav Shul here, right next to us. Okay? Rabbi Yitzhak Abu Hav, at least the second. We'll talk about who wrote the Sefer Torah. Was it Rabbi Yitzhak Abu Hav the first, or Rabbi Yitzhak Abu Hav the second? And we have about 10 Rabbi Yitzhak Abu Havs. It's a dynasty. Okay? There's Emmanuel Abu Hav. His daughter funded a yeshiva like this one. She funded an academy in Tzfat in the early 17th century. The daughter of Rabbi Emmanuel Abu Havsh. Her name was Gracia. And she was here about 50 years after the Ari. So there were still yeshivot here, maybe right here in the Alshech shul. The Alshech may have passed away already. But in the early 17th century, there could have been an academy right here, a yeshiva, Beit Midrash. And this we know from the sources. So with that said, a little bit about Toledo and Cordova, where I visited last week. We're going back now to talk about the Ari and Rabbi Yosef Karo. I already showed this picture once. I'm going to show it again. Could it be the Ari HaKadosh? Okay? The person who found it maintains it is. Yechezkel Meiri Zal, he passed away after finding it. I hope he didn't pass away in wake of finding it. I hope not. Okay? We don't know where he found it. That's the big question. So anybody who lives in Tzfat, if you find this picture of him in an old book, I'd like to know in which old book he found it. But he published it, and I republished it. And now a picture of the Ari is also in the Bet Knesset, in the shul of the Ari. So this could be him. He was a young man, okay? No white hair like we have, okay? He wasn't 40 even before when he passed away. So it could be like him.
No peyot.
Okay, what? Huh?
No peyot.
No peot. He has a whole beard,
Okay, but
right? He has a whole beard.
Mizorah
I told
Kodesh
Rav Shmuel Eliyahu that I once told them that they look alike a little bit. But the Ari HaKadosh is half Sephardi and half Ashkenazi. So he's a Tzabar. He's an Israeli. He was born in Yerushalayim. Half Sephardi, half Ashkenazi. And this is what he looked like. So this is what the Israelis looked like then. People born in Israel. He grew up in Egypt with his uncle, the Sephardi, and he married, I've already mentioned this, but he married his first cousin, the daughter of his uncle, who was Sephardi, from both sides, from the Francis family. We don't know the name of his wife, his cousin. We don't know her name. We do know the names of, I think, 3 of his 4 children. Okay, the Ari and his wife, he had only one wife. Not like Rabbi Yosef Karo, who had a number of wives. He had one wife. They married in Egypt. And they had, for all I know, they had 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. One daughter is Achsa. Okay, Achsa, who married Rabbi Shlomo Sagis. Sagis. Sometimes we write Sagis with a samach, or sometimes with a sin. Today, there are descendants. Okay, I know somebody, a friend of mine, Yossi Sagis, Yosef Sagis, or now they call themselves Sanes. From Sagis, they turned it to Sanes, and he has a whole genealogy of the family of the Ari, the Luria family, but who married into the Francis family, and their descendants. So one daughter is Achsa, who married Rabbi Shlomo Sagis, also from a very prominent Sephardi family, Rabbi Yosef Sagis, important rabbis here in Tzfat. There were many, many rabbis in Tzfat. Not all of them are known and famous. But the Sagis family, Rabbi Avraham Shalom, many rabbis who were here and were well known. But we know about the Ari and Yosef Karo more. We have to study about the other rabbis also. So the son-in-law of the Ari is also from a very prominent family. And he himself was a rabbi, Rabbi Shlomo Sagis. He had another daughter, Rivka, who married somebody from the Te'omim family. We don't know, maybe I don't know so much about their family, but we have names of their descendants. He had a son, Moshe. And we know that Moshe, when they came from Egypt, okay, when the Ari came from Egypt, maybe he came through Yerushalayim. Most of us say that he came straight to Tzfat. But there were hints that he maybe came through Yerushalayim. He didn't stay in Yerushalayim, but he came to Tzfat. According to Rabbi Chaim Vital, he came to teach him. And they had a son, a small son. How do we know it was a little baby? Because they did a chalakeh for him in Meron. So that means he was 3 years old, or a little more or less. And that's the first chalakeh that we know about. Okay? It could have been performed before, but this is the first famous chalakeh that the Hasidim at least, and as Sfaradim do the chalakeh in Meron. So Moshe had his chalakeh in Meron when the Ari was here. And the Ari was only here for 2 years. So it was about 1570 or 1571. Afterward, Moshe seemed to grow up, but passed away at a very young age. And even though on the graveside it says, Rabbi Moshe, the son of the Ari, that's fine with me, okay? But he seemed he passed away early. The Ari had another daughter. I would love to know her name, because that's the daughter that was engaged, at least engaged, to the son of Rabbi Yosef Karo. We know the name of the son of Rabbi Yosef Karo, Shlomo. We don't know the name of the girl who got engaged to him. And I don't know, I'm not sure that they got married, but my friend Yosef Sanes says they did. In other words, the tradition in the family says they got married. And so Rabbi Shlomo Karo, who was a Sfaradi, because his mother also was a Sfaradi. If you remember, I mentioned that the last wife of Rabbi Yosef Karo was an Ashkenaziyah. And she's the one who in 1607 told the story of the engagement to Rabbi Shlomo Shlumil in 1607. She told him the story that took place in 1570. Okay? That means 37 years before she was telling the story. 37 years ago, okay, my husband, Rabbi Yosef Karo's son, got engaged to the daughter of the Ari. And they had an engagement party. The Tnaim, okay? And Rabbi Yosef Karo was there, and that's when he heard the Devar Torah of the Ari, and he was so flabbergasted, that's the right word, flabbergasted, in hearing what the Ari said. He came home and told his young wife that he just came from something super special. He never heard a Devar Torah given like the one the Ari gave at the engagement party. Also, we have to remember when children got engaged, they could have been still very young. Maybe even 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, because they're just getting engaged. They'll be married later on. So we don't know, I don't know what, the age of the two children that got engaged. Yosef Sanes says, yes, they got married in the end also. So that means we have another daughter of the Ari who was married to the son of Rabbi Yosef Karo. Let me remind you, Rabbi Yosef Karo was 82 years old when the Ari came to Tzfat, when the Ari was 37 years old. The Ari could have been the grandchild of Rabbi Yosef Karo, but they're still, according to this tradition, in-laws, right? I think that's the way, in-laws, because their children got married also. That's interesting. We don't have that. These things don't happen today.
How was
maybe in Tzfat it happens, but
how old was Chaim Vital?
יפה. Rabbi Chaim Vital, the great student of the Ari, was younger than the Ari, about 10 years younger, or so, but 9, maybe 8, 9, 10 years younger than the Ari. Rabbi Chaim Vital, most scholars believe he was born in Tzfat. And he grew up in Tzfat, because most of the other rabbis weren't born in Tzfat. They came from different places. Rabbi Yosef Karo himself, many believe he was born in Toledo. So I was very excited walking through the alleyways of Toledo, thinking that this is where Rabbi Yosef Karo crawled when he was an infant, until at least 4 years old. And other rabbis were in Toledo. So we have to remember the age differences, but everybody got along together. But also all depends what you read. If we read in Shifchei Ha'ari, the stories on the Ari himself, we'll read about the Ari, and here we'll read how Rabbi Yosef Karo wanted to learn Kabbalah by the Ari, but he fell asleep. Because the Ari tried to hint to him that he's more, Rabbi Yosef Karo, you're more into the Ramak. Okay? And it says in the Shifchei Ari, he used to fall asleep. On the other hand, we have to remember, okay, he was 82 years old. Okay, and sometimes elderly people fall asleep. So that's in Shifchei Ari. But in the Magid Mesharim, written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, his diary of his conversations with the Magid, there it's mentioned that Rabbi Yosef Karo will be a great Mekubal also. And he was. Even in the Shulchan Aruch, it's full of Kabbalah. Okay? There are a lot of research projects being done now in universities on this aspect of Kabbalah intertwined in the halakha of Rabbi Yosef Karo. So these are certainly great giants. And what I want to bring in is one or two more stories. We talked about the Magid Mesharim and the Shifchei Ari, telling us about the relationship between Rabbi Yosef Karo and the Ari. In any case, Rabbi Yosef Karo, the great Rosh Yeshiva, understood the greatness of the Ari. He himself heard the Ari in public. And I guess he wanted to learn Kabbalah, just like the Alshech. The Alshech also wanted Kabbalah, and the same thing happened with the Alshech. Alshech also wasn't a youngster. I think he was a little younger than Yosef Karo, not so much, and he lived to much longer, to about 1600. But the Alshech also fell asleep when he was waiting for the Ari, and his pupils outside of Tzfat on the way to Kabbalat Shabbat to the field. He sat there and waiting for them, and waiting for them, and waiting for them, and he fell asleep. The Ari told him, you know what, wait for us down by the tree on the way to the field, and then come with us, see how we bring in the Shabbat, Kabbalah. But he waited, and then he fell asleep. So that's also in Shifchei Ari.
Is there validity to the Chapat Puchim Kedushin next to the Ashkenaz Ari at Chatzer? Is that right where it was, right down?
Okay, we're gonna give a whole shiur on the Chakal Tapuchim Kedushin Be'ezrat Hashem. That's where he said it's Kabbalat Shabbat. But we also think and imagine them going to other fields. I also think of them. Certainly Hasidei Breslev, when they go out of the Tzfat on Fridays, they go out, okay? They're doing what the Ari did also. But Rabbi Chaim Vital describes at least once where the Ari said, this is the Chakal Tapuchin Kadeshin by the Ari Ashkenazi, Rabbi Chaim Vital describes his Kabbalat Shabbat there. And that's what we have written. Okay, but I believe also, I think they went out, or the Ari went all over. He took Rabbi Chaim Vital to the Kivrei Tzadikim. He was a great Moreh Derech. He was a great guide. And so we should remember that also. So I mentioned that the Ari and Rabbi Yosef Karo, at least according to Shivchei Ari, their children were engaged. And besides that, we have stories about the Ari. I can't say criticizing Rabbi Yosef Karo, but hinting at things that he knew that Rabbi Yosef Karo didn't know. Who am I to discuss this, B'chlal? But it's written, it's hinted. And this youngster, the Ari youngster, is 37, 38 years old, okay? I'm sure he did it mildly. But we have a story, for instance, when Rabbi Yosef Karo was in his shul, and they're in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei, okay? And of course, okay, in the tefillah, everybody waits, the chazan waits for Rabbi Yosef Karo to finish his tefillah before he starts the Chazarat HaShatz. Again, saying the Shmoneh Esrei. And one day, Rabbi Yosef Karo continues, and he's still davening, and taking a long time, more than the usual time, that the Rosh Yeshiva says Shmoneh Esrei. The Ari whispers to the Gabbai and tells him something. He tells him, go to Rabbi Yosef Karo and tell him, the answer is this and this in the Mishnah and the Gemara. He told the Gabbai, we're supposed to wait for Rabbi Yosef Karo for him to finish his tefillah, for his prayer. We don't have to wait for him if he's thinking of things, how to solve a halachic problem. So the Ari told the Gabbai, whisper into his ear. The answer is like this. The Gabbai went to him, whispered into his ear, and then Rabbi Yosef Karo woke up. And he realized that's the answer, and he finished the tefillah.
Amazing.
Okay, that's one of the milder stories we have. There's another story we have where the Ari was sitting in a celebration, in a Sudat Mitzvah. And the Ari, this is something hard to imagine, but the Ari didn't want to eat the meat. Yosef Karo says, why aren't you eating the meat? So the Ari said, Shchita is not, something's wrong with the Shchita. And Yosef Karo said, what do you mean? Okay. Where, I said the Mashgiach. And then the Ari pointed to Yosef Karo and said, look what's coming out of your mouth. He took out a piece of the meat and he saw it's part of the Gid HaNasheh. I don't know how to say Gid HaNasheh in English, but the part of the thigh, I think a thigh, that's not kosher. Okay, I'm not a shochet. My grandfather here in Tzfat was a shochet, and his father also was a shochet. But I can't. If I do that, I'll faint. But my whole list of grandparents here, grandfathers, they were shochtim. And that's a story that's you wouldn't expect to see. But that's also one of the stories that we have here. Of course, that's a story we're not going to find in Magid Meshalim. But it can happen. So, things like this, mistakes can happen also in Shchita, Chalila.
Did the Ari Kodesh not hold by the Shchita, by the Shita of the Beit Yosef, by the sakin.
Okay, I don't know. Okay? You'll have to ask my grandfather who passed away 30 years ago. I don't know. I'm not a shochet. But that's the story we have. And maybe I'll finish up by saying that, yes, Rabbi Yosef Karo had his psika, right? He was the Mara Da'atra, he was the rabbi of Tzfat and all of Israel. And some say he was the most important rabbi in his generation in the world. Okay? Yes, the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlich, was in Krakow at the same time. Okay? And the Ramah afterward wrote his commentary, his comments on the Shulchan Aruch, of course, the Hagahot HaRamah. But I think scholars will agree he was the greatest halachic authority then, and some will say since then. Okay? Or at least some will say until Rav Ovadia. Rav Ovadia saw in Rabbi Yosef Karo his mentor. Okay? But there were still some divisions between them. For instance, until today, kaparot, on the day before Yom Kippur, kaparot. Most of us, maybe all of us, okay, we don't take a chicken and do shchita. But some will, because the Ari said, yes, it has to be shchita. Rabbi Yosef Karo said, it doesn't have to be shchita. You can give tzedakah, you can give coins, you can give money instead. And I think most of the rabbis today will also agree with Rabbi Yosef Karo. Every year, you see in the newspapers, you see the different opinions with the Mekubalim. We'll go according to the Ari, Yerushalayim, and the more, they'll say, you don't have to do shchita. You can do kaparot without the shchita itself. And I think last year in Lag BaOmer, I think we talked here about the Lag BaOmer celebration. We'll talk a bit. We'll do that again because Lag BaOmer is coming up after Pesach. But there was a division there also. Rabbi Yosef Karo was against going en masse to Miron and Lag BaOmer because of halachic reasons. He didn't want the mingling together of men and women. And the Ari said, no, we have to go. And who won the battle? We go. We go. It doesn't say exactly, it doesn't say in the Shulchan Aruch, don't go. Okay? But we have a Ktav Yad, we have the story of Rabbi Yosef Karo saying not to go, at least together. Young women shouldn't go. Maybe older women. Young women shouldn't go, so they shouldn't be mingled together. And the Ari fought against that decision, and he came to the Beit Din, and he knocked on the table. That I'm adding on. It doesn't say that. But he said, we have to go. If we don't go, there'll be a plague. Wow. And the Beit Din, Rabbi Yosef Karo, they got scared. They already knew the Ari. They knew what the Ari, if the Ari dares something and mentions something like that, it could happen. And so they said, okay, go ahead, the Beseder, we'll go, we don't want a plague. So we have this interesting relationship between the Ari and Rabbi Yosef Karo, a relationship of great respect, even a blood relationship, okay, if they're in-laws. A young man, energetic, revolutionary, the Ari, and Rabbi Yosef Karo, who many of us think only as the great halachic mentor of for generations, but he was also a great mekubal. So that's Tzfat. Both of these trends, the Kabbalah and the Halacha, and not only men, even some of the women and the wives of these of these great rabbis were also very important personalities. Okay, we'll talk about that also once.
Any descendants of the Arizal in Tzfat?
What?
Any descendants of them? Any grand?
Yes, a good question. Okay, we have Luria family here in Tzfat. Rabbi Luria teaches in the Yeshivat Hesder. Very prominent family here. I talk to him a lot. I joke to him about it. With Luria, you're a Luria. Okay, he's Ashkenazi. Okay, but Luria is a big family. The Marshal from Lublin is also Luria. And they're probably one big family, originally maybe from Germany, then to Poland, and their descendants. So I like to talk to him, remind him sometimes. And he knows. He's also a very nice family, the Luria family. And we have the Karo family here in Tzfat. Rav Yotam Karo is a member of the council of the city, okay? He was re-elected just now, Rabbi Yotam Karo. And he thinks he's from maybe Rav Yosef Karo's brother or uncle. Okay, but it's from the family. But they're also Ashkenazi. And I mentioned that already, but the last wife of Rabbi Yosef Karo was an Ashkenaziyah. And down the line, many of the Karo family members went to Western Europe, to Holland. And I think I already mentioned this. So we have in my shul, right, in the Saraya, in the Noam shul, we have Harav Luria and we have Harav Karo. Both of them are with us. And I joke with them sometimes. Harav Luria, he davens Sfarad, okay. But Harav Yotam Karo, he's Ashkenaz, Nusach Ashkenaz, but quietly. And I said, what are you doing? At least you should be Nusach Sfarad like us Hasidim. And you're Karo. And that's the way we are today. The people of Israel, we're all mixed together, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. And it didn't start now. Okay, people think only after, in the last 100 years, people started coming back, kibbutz galuyot from the different diasporas, and here we're mingling. They mingled already then. But maybe in Tzfat more than other places. I think. Because in Tzfat we had also a prominent Ashkenazi community. It's not so well known. Okay, we have Rabbi Yehuda Iberlin, and we have a very recent article on Ashkenazim that were here in Tzfat 50 to 100 years after the Ari. So there were Ashkenazim, not the majority, but a small, strong community of Ashkenazim, along with the Sfaradim. In the Sfaradim themselves, there were about 10 communities of Sfaradim and Portuguese and conversos, Anusim. Okay, we have here in Tzfat the great-grandson of the rabbi of Lisbon. Okay, a family that became conversos. They had to convert, but they came back. And the El Butini family, we have them here in Tzfat. We found the grave of Rabbi Moshe El Butini in Tzfat. So the big photo of the cemetery gives us so much information. Only in the last 10, 15 years are we finding the graves of people we didn't know who were in Tzfat, including Roshei Yeshiva. We're learning about yeshivot that were here in Tzfat that we didn't know about before.
How can you determine who someone is in the Beit Kvarot when the matzevot are already...
Okay, so there are about 130 matzevot, or pieces of matzevot, that are still legible.
What's a matzevot?
Okay, there?
Tombstones.
Oh, tombstones, good question. Tombstones in the cemetery. Okay, we know, because we know the names of women from the tombstones in the cemetery. We know the name of Rabbi Chaim Vital's sister, only from the tombstone that was found in the cemetery. Okay, Reine. Reine was her name. Reine is Spanish or Latin for Malka. Okay, Spain, Spanish. And that's how we know, okay, and I lectured on this once. That's how we know that Rabbi Chaim Vital is from originally a Spanish Sephardi family, originally from Spain, because the family was in Italy. And Rabbi Chaim Vital's father came from southern Italy, to Tzfat. So we weren't sure where they're from originally, because the name Vital is already Italian.
Yes.
But originally they're probably Spanish, because if they weren't Spanish, why would they give the name to the daughter Reine? So that's a chidush from that we learn from the tomb, one of the tombstones in the cemetery. So we heard a little bit of that. We mentioned Rabbi Chaim Vital. Rabbi Chaim Vital deserves at least one shiur, if not a whole year, of talking about Rabbi Chaim Vital, the great student of the Ari. Through him, we know about the Ari. Shavua Tov.
Beautiful. It's so nice to be able to bring